Welcome to the Pit Check, your metal and hardcore news for the best new albums released each week. This week, hardcore, death metal, and black metal lovers are getting stuffed like a Thanksgiving turkey. Plus, we've got some sides of metalcore and thrash, but the real meat and potatoes this week are these guys. Man, I should not record this show when I'm hungry. It's gonna be all food metaphors. Either way, we're all eating good this week. So make sure you subscribe to the channel because we do this every week. And let's get right into this week's best new albums. The New Jersey hardcore band Bayway has released their latest EP, World of Bayway, Volume 3. You should probably know what you're getting into by now with Bayway. That perfect blend of tough as nails hardcore and East Coast rapping and just general Northeast aggression. I have always been a big fan of Bayway, but genuinely, this might be some of their best material thus far. For example, I loved The Recipe Volume 1 from last year, but comparing these releases one to one, here the riffs are somehow nastier and heavier and even more creative. The drums are raw and messy with a super natural production, clearly tracked live. And when it comes to the rapping itself, the bars here are actually way more clever with tons of alternating patterns and rhythms, and it's all just sick as hell. This EP also leans way heavier into the harsh vocals, which is something I personally love. And as expected, the breakdowns are as vicious as always. My only real complaint here is that this is only 5 songs. I mean, it is an EP and they just dropped an album. This is a nearly perfect 5-song encapsulation of exactly why Bayway has taken over the world. Did you know Stanley Kubrick's grandson has a metalcore band? After 8 long years since their last album, the UK metalcore band Shields have finally released their latest LP, Death and Connection. Honestly, Shields never really gets the credit they deserve. Even as far back as the I Just Feel Hate days of 2013, they've always been able to add a fresh take on the 2010s Rise Records metalcore sound, not trying to reinvent the wheel, just making the wheel stronger, better, faster, with thicker grooves. Hey, that actually works. I did my best not to listen to any of the singles before the album dropped. Oh my god, they released 6 singles for a 12-song album that has interludes? Oof, that's tough. So I was not expecting the overall tone of the album to be quite so dark and pissed off. This is the angriest and most aggressive I've ever heard them. The riffs are chuggy and dissonant with these like eerie harmonies and just absolutely filthy breakdowns. They also fuse this anger with a genuine and somber tone that ripples throughout the entire album, which honestly makes a ton of sense given what the band has been through in their personal lives, the most brutal of which is explicitly told through the closing track, which is a heartfelt dedication to their guitarist who sadly passed away 8 years ago. Miss Me is a visceral yet cathartic way to end the album, as well as providing a simple yet poignant message to anyone that has lost someone close to them.
Get him, guys! Stab him in the butt!
The slamming brutal death metal band Stabbing has released their sophomore album, Eon of Obscenity. This is what slam and brutal death metal is all about. We've got recognizable yet innovative shredding from the guitars, genuinely fun and creative songwriting that kicks a ton of ass without being memey, a sick-ass drummer that's not snapped to a grid and actually has some swing to it, and obviously a literal demon for a vocalist. I really love the dynamics of this album. They prove that they can absolutely nail the more technical and grindy side of things while also getting low and slow with these just thick and satisfying slams. The ability to avoid any kind of repetition throughout an 11-song album is just one of many ways this band subtly flexes their masterful musicianship. This is some top tier slam, period. I feel like this is like the Hereditary of slam albums, in that it's just expertly crafted, and whether you're into the more extreme stuff or just a casual fan, you're gonna love it, especially because it leans on expert craftsmanship and attention to detail without feeling pretentious. No matter where you are on the slam spectrum, Stabbing delivers the goods. Want some weirdly uplifting black metal? The Danish Blackgaze band Mole is back with their latest album, Dreamcrush. Honestly, given what's going on in the world right now, I'm always expecting the music to reflect that by being apathetic and angry and generally pissed off. But this is honestly such a melodic and beautiful and optimistic album. Sort of like if Explosions in the Sky or Pianos Become the Teeth were a black metal band. This is easily one of the most interesting and innovative bands in the Blackgaze scene, even rivaling the spectacular Death Heaven album Lonely People with Power from last year, adding in these really well incorporated clean vocals and powerful choruses and even some like alt-rock elements, but nothing ever feels shoehorned in or like for marketability reasons. The elements here feel like a natural progression of their sound, and they do it effortlessly. The vocals here are obviously the most immediately shocking element across the board, whether it's those classic black metal growls or the clean vocals or the ferocious lows. The vocals are just show-stopping. But I also want to commend the incredible musicianship here, whether it's these intricate riffs or the tremolo picking, the gorgeous harmonies, or even the constant blasting drumming. Every piece to this puzzle fits together perfectly. Do not sleep on German hardcore. The metallic hardcore band Minus Youth has released their debut album, Lines Crossed. This band takes a pretty interesting swing at the modern hardcore genre. You've got a lot of these pulse-pounding riffs and two-steps and bass grooves that any fan of Speed, Trapped Under Ice, or Drain would love, but then they add a pretty interesting blend of these like 2000s metalcore and melodic hardcore elements, which you can really hear when they add in some clean choruses or chuggy 16th note breakdowns. But this isn't the only creative swing these guys take. I mean, there's a mandolin solo in the song Ending Things, as well as killer features from Wrecked Culture, Wonderful World, and the massively underrated Defiance HC. So you can tell this band is clearly not afraid to incorporate whatever they feel like incorporating, but never using it as a gimmick. It's always done extremely tastefully and to service the song. But all of this isn't to say that the underlying spine of this band isn't hardcore. That's the opposite of what I'm saying. None of this would work if the actual hardcore didn't work. And they show off their hardcore chops in spades. They just like to mix it up a little bit. If you're into ADHD hardcore, this will be right up your alley. Need some occult feminist death metal punk? The Italian death metal-ish band Scold has released their third album, Abyss Calls to Abyss. Alright, I love this shit. I know I get crap from purists for loving genre blending as much as I do, but this one really makes me feel like the Friends meme.
Are you kidding? What's not to like? Custard? Good. Jam? Good. Meat? Good.
All of these punk and thrash elements keep the adrenaline pumping throughout the entire album, never letting you stay comfortable. And they feel like great payoffs and balances to the oppressive and menacing atmosphere that the more blackened death metal elements bring. If you're into the occult and mysticism and weird haunting vibes, this should be so far up your alley, you're gonna need a surgeon to get it out. Highly recommend this one. Am I gonna get cursed if I say this? The Belarusian technical death metal band Eximperitus has released their latest album, Meritoriousness of Equanimity. Man, if you just love some old school classic brutal death metal, you literally cannot go wrong with this one. Everything about this album sounds like it's from the late 90s in the best way possible. This is an album that constantly builds upon itself. It gets increasingly more and more punishing while simultaneously getting more epic as it progresses, leading to a really well-earned and satisfying conclusion. The surprising amount of melodies and atmospheric progressions solidifies this as just an extremely rewarding death metal album that genuinely, if it was released in the 90s, it would probably be a cult classic. And just to rapid fire some quick ones that I didn't get to do a full review on, check out the band Cold Blood. They're an Australian hardcore band that released an album last week that was an absolute ripper, and I just didn't want it to go overlooked. Invictus is a Japanese death metal band that is pretty sick as well. Jawbreaker THCBD is a really fun band if you love that dark deathcore and beatdown hardcore sound. And there's so many more bands on this list that are all really good and worth checking out. Honestly, this was a really hard week to try and narrow it down to 7. So feel free to shout out in the comments if there's something on this list that I've absolutely just missed, or if there's something that should have been added to this list, or even if there's something coming out soon that should probably be on my radar. Let me know in the comments or DM me on any of my socials. And obviously, if you have a band that has an album coming out soon, feel free to shoot me a DM as well. Thank you all for spending another week with me, and I'll catch you next week for next week's Best New Albums.